had who see this, and it's like whispering in a forest, that everybody's even afraid to talk. They whisper about it. They're even afraid to even communicate about it. So you're a very brave woman, Harriet, and we're very proud of you, and we're honored you took time to call us.
Yeah, Harriet, we're going to the break, but I do appreciate your call. Folks, we have a couple other callers lined up here. When we come back from the break, we will bring up Steve from Illinois. In the meantime, folks, I do want to mention that if you'd like to send a little gift of appreciation to Jim Traficant's wife, Tish Traficant, I think that would be a nice thing to do, because she sat at home out there in Poland, Ohio for 7 years waiting for Jim to come back. And you can write her at Tish Traficant, 429 North Main Street, Poland, Ohio, 44514. Tish Traficant, 429 North Main Street, Poland, Ohio, 44514. We'll be right back after the break. Stay tuned. We'll bring up Steve from Illinois. All right, folks, we are wrapping up this hour very fast here. We're going to squeeze in one more caller before we bid Jim Traficant farewell for the evening. We have Steve in Illinois. Steve, fire away. Steve from Illinois. Steve, are you there? I'm afraid we lost Steve, but I'll tell you what, I'm just going to go ahead and let Jim wrap up the hour here. Jim, is there anything else you want to tell our listeners? Because I know people are anxious to hear what you have to say.
Well, Michael, one thing I'd like to recommend to you, because I don't think there's anybody any better, is get an entire listing of all the political action committees and list them in the American Free Press, and ask people who have any information about these PACs to write you.
That's a very good idea.
I think that's one thing to do, and I'm going to look into it, and I'm going to begin to look into it. But let me say this. I believe that our country is in grave danger. The dollar may actually collapse, and I don't see anybody doing anything about it, and everybody's just tinkering with the edges and putting bandages on. We are now, Michael, subsidizing home purchases, auto purchases, and we have a false sense of economic growth and activity through government debt instruments trying to produce a stimulus here. God almighty, can't you see what's happening? That national debt is now over $12 trillion. We're in trouble.
Jim, in one of the big newspapers today, whether it was the Times or the Post here in Washington, or I think it was one of the two Washington papers, they had a review of a book written by a gentleman who says that China is going to be the great power of the 21st century. And he says practically exactly what you're saying, that the American nation is about to implode, and that the American people are going to see a lot of suffering in the days ahead. And they're just going to have to like it or lump it.
Well, you know what's interesting, Michael? I said once on the House floor, is Russia's a fly on our face. China's an elephant eating our assets. And I wasn't just saying it to joke. Here's Russia, Soviet Union, a country that couldn't even stock toilet tissue in their grocery stores, and they were being called a superpower. But that big superpower, we're not the only superpower, and that big Chinese dragon is taking over, I would say, close to $500 billion a year in trade surplus out of this country. They say it's 250, 300. They're lying. China is taking close to $500 billion, and they're buying nuclear attack submarines, attack aircraft. They have missiles. And let me tell you, the only thing holding this economy up that we do have are those missiles. And those missiles aren't the only missiles around anymore. We're facing some serious problems. I predict the implosion unless the following is done. Abolish Internal Revenue Service, repeal the 16th Amendment, initiate a flat 25% national final retail sales tax, eliminate all the taxes on savings, investment, education, death taxes, capital gains, and that 25% tax on the border, every one of those Japanese and Germans come over to visit Las Vegas, pay into our tax scheme. Everybody who spends pays into our tax scheme. No one avoids the tax scheme. And when you take that powerful overhead that's forced on our companies by this tax code, the prices that we're familiar with now probably will not even be impacted upon by that 25%. And everybody gets a full paycheck. No more withholding, no more April 15th, no more government in our face.
I can't think that anyone could present a better program than what you just presented, Jim. I want to thank you for being on the show, to say God bless you and your family for what you have gone through, just because you dared to speak out and say what needed to be said. Thank you, Jim Traficant, on behalf of all the listeners here at RBN and the readers of American Free Press. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Happy holidays to you and all your listeners.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here. Jim Traficant, the one and only.
With recent